Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Silent Cities on location here in France. I wonder if you can see behind me, you've probably guessed where we are. Yes, it's Thiepval, the Thiepval Memorial. Probably the most magnificent of the CWGC memorials that we have anywhere in the world. 72,000 casualties are commemorated here, casualties that have no known grave and died during the battles here in the Somme. So we're going to discover a bit more today about the work that's recently been done at Thiepval, restoration work, as well as learning a bit more about the history of this memorial.
So this is the Thiepval Memorial. It's the largest Commonwealth War Graves Commission memorial anywhere in the world, both in terms of its mighty scale, but also in terms of the number of individuals it commemorates. The named here are 72,000 British and South African service personnel who died on the Somme battlefields during the Battle of the Somme from early 1915 through to the 20th of March 1918, just before the German spring offensive in the spring of 1918. It serves three purposes, this memorial, starting from the bottom, and most importantly, of course, are the individuals who are named here. The servicemen who died in this area, in the fields which surround us, but who have no known grave. 72,000 British and South African servicemen. It then also serves the purpose of memorialising the phases of the Battle of the Somme. It stands as a memorial to the battle itself. And if you look directly above the name panels, you might see wreathed in laurels the names of some of those key battles. Immediately here you can see Bapaume, Albert, Guillemont, Flers-Courcelette, Thiepval Ridge, which is where we're standing right now, right at the heart of the Somme battlefields. And then at the very top of the memorial, you might see a British and French flag. That's not a mistake. We are, of course, in France. This is a British memorial, though. But this memorial also has the third very important purpose of memorialising the alliance that existed between the British and French during the First World War, memorialising the joint sacrifices that British and French service people made for the freedom of France, and that's why those two flags fly proudly from the top of this magnificent memorial. Unveiled in 1932 by the then Prince of Wales, who would go on to be Edward VIII, designed by Edwin Lutyens. There's 16 ground level piers around which the names are engraved onto Portland stone panels. It's made of engineering brick, which means it's bricks that have been fired to a higher temperature to give them more strength. It's got a concrete core. We've been down inside and had a look at the foundations of it. It's the magnificent catacombs underneath support the vast memorial. It rises to a central arch and then to a tower 45 metres high, which really stands sentinel over the Somme battlefields and can be seen from all across the Somme battlefields, and intentionally so. Lutyens himself came here after the end of the First World War, and after much debate about where they were going to build this memorial, came to this site and decided that on this high ground, which at the time was a completely open wasteland, the fighting had been fierce right here, that this was where he thought his magnificent memorial to the missing should be placed.
Welcome to Chevalier Memorial. I'm Tarik, Works Manager in CWGC France area, and I was in charge of restoration work phase 2 of Thiepval Memorial. Thiepval Memorial is one of the most iconic memorial of the Commission worldwide, and the most important one here in the area of the Somme. The restoration work of phase 2 of restoration work was mainly about the lower section. Something important to mention is that it has been a phase 1 of the project conducted in 2015-2016, and it was about the top section, everything above the main arches. The phase 2 of the project was about, in fact, the lower section, and the scope of work of it was mainly about brick refacing, so redoing the whole areas of brick, repointing of bricks, stonework, reparation, renovation, replacement. A special attention has been made to the commemorative panel, where we spend a lot of time doing the assessments, going through every single panel, panel by panel, and to define what needs to be re-engraved, repaired, or completely replaced. One important part also of the scope of work was the restoration of the whole areas of floors everywhere in the memorial, waterproofing of several terraces in different locations of the memorial, and improvement of drainages in the basement. Underneath the memorial we have a big area, a big basement, where we are collecting the whole rainwater coming from different locations and terraces. An important point, everything has been conducted and guided by conservation principle. A good example of that is the commemorative panel, where we spent a lot of time assessing them, deciding what needs to be repaired, replaced, or renovated. Before the installation of scaffolding, we've done a first assessment from the ground, and it was more than 100 panels to be replaced. After the installation of the scaffolding and the assessment from close, we ended up with around 55 panels to replace, and this is due to our conservation strategy and conservation principle. That was the main scope of work of renovation, phase 2 of Thiepval Memorial.
Thank you to Tarik for that. That was absolutely fascinating. If you want to find out more about the restoration work, make sure to check out the description below. Now back to Max, who's going to tell us a couple of stories of some of the casualties that we commemorate here at Thiepval.
The men commemorated here obviously fell in battle. Some were lost forever immediately upon their death. Their bodies lost to artillery fire or to the circumstances that surrounded their death. Others were buried by their comrades, and their graves were then damaged, destroyed, or lost in later fighting, or indeed through time. One of those interesting stories, though, is that of Cedric Dickens, who is commemorated just here, a major with the 13th Battalion of the London Regiment, the Kensingtons. He's son of the famous author Dickens himself, who everybody knows all about, and you've probably read his work. He was killed in action on the Somme, and his comrades buried him in a carefully marked grave. And at the end of the war, the Graves concentration units, who were scouring the battlefield, found his grave and wrote to his mother and said, "We'd like to move his grave into one of our permanent cemeteries." And his mother said, "No, I want him to remain exactly where he is, in the grave that his comrades gave him." And we said, "Are you sure? This could mean that his body is lost." She said, "No, absolutely not." As the years passed, the commission looked after the grave, but there was concerns about it. And then finally, when his mother passed away, the family gave us permission to go and exhume his body and move him into one of our permanent cemeteries and mark it with one of our headstones. But when we went to look, we could find no body beneath the marker. And sadly, his name appears as an addenda on the Thiepval Memorial. Love meant that she did not want his grave disturbed, but it also meant that perhaps it meant we lost his body and the opportunity to mark his grave in perpetuity. But he is not forgotten, because he's remembered here on the Commonwealth War Graves Commission's Thiepval Memorial to the missing. 6-year-old father of 5, who was a postman before the war, hence he joined the post office rifles, killed at the Bout de Valencourt, again, just like the story we've just looked at. 36, he's a little bit older than the others around him. Nice picture of him there. Before his death, he wrote home. Nice little letter. My dear little children, just a few lines to you all, hoping you are all well and getting on fine at school. Of course, I know our little Clifford don't go to school yet. He's stopping at home and keeping mother company. Well, Dada is pleased to say, thank God that I am feeling well once more. I am with all the dear soldiers that came back safe after the terrible battle. Some are like me and got little children at home, so they are glad that God has spared them once more. Well, I reckon you have all learned some fine little pieces at your school since I went home. We don't see any children where I am now, only soldiers. Give the grandmams and granddads my love when you go around to see them. Suppose you will go on Sunday and sit with mother and gran and dads and sing on the Sunday evening. If she doesn't take you out, the worst part is the winter nights as it gets dark, so soon after tea, so you cannot get to the fair. It's so nice and sunny today after having so much rain which makes so much mud afterwards. You must all write me a short little letter and put it in Mother's letter when she writes, just to tell me how you are keeping. Well, this little letter is for all of you from your loving Dada with fondest love. God bless you all and keep you from all danger. 2 kisses each. And then he wrote on the 2 kisses each on each of the ones, so there's 5 kisses on each of them. Tragedy, however, followed the family. Like so many others, the Second World War came around, and his then 27-year-old son, able seaman Arthur Frederick William Skipper, was killed when HMS Herworth struck a mine in the Aegean Sea. He's commemorated on the Plymouth Naval Memorial.
Thank you, Max, for those stories. Of course, only 2 stories out of the over 72,000 casualties that we commemorate here at Thiepval. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any future episodes of Silent Cities. And from a very wet and windy Thiepval, make sure you join us next week for another episode of Silent Cities.